Hello and welcome to Talking Dogs on a Monday. As always, we're going to be discussing all the weekend's top class action, including the quarterfinals of the friends and supporters of Cork Greyhound Racing Irish Laurels. A tremendous competition, a tremendous classic, some brilliant performances. We'll also be taking a look back at the final of the RPG TV Juvenile Derby and the final of the Yvonne Barry Open 600 from Shelbourne Park. As always, I'm joined by the exile dub Tommy Lyons from his yawl base, and we're also joined by Declan O'Donoghue, who was lucky enough to be at Shelbourne Park on Saturday night, where we saw a brilliant winner of both the Juvenile Derby and the Open 600, while we could also take in the action from Curraheen Park. Declan, a great weekend for Greyhound sport, some brilliant performances both in Dublin and in Cork.
Yes, indeed, Ian. Two tremendous finals in Dublin, one of which was fairly predictable, but the other one you couldn't have picked a winner in 100 years. But it was both very worthy winners, dominating the finals from the start, really, and great racing. And we also were watching the great racing from Curraheen, where there's some superb dogs in action down there as well. We really have a very good vintage crop of greyhounds around at the moment.
Yeah, we certainly do indeed. Tommy Lyons, you were lucky enough to be at Curraheen. Before we get started in the action itself, tell us about the weather, tell us about conditions. For me, it seemed like there was a fair bit of rain in the middle of the card, may have affected the Swords Rex performance, or time, should I say, not performance. The performance was stunning. But also, was there a chance it was getting a bit colder as the evening went on?
I don't think the cold was a factor, I'll be honest about it, but I think that there were a couple of torrential downpours, and one of them was just before the Swords Rex heat, and now the track was plated after the heat, and it might have made a bit of difference. But I think the beauty of what we saw Saturday night was we saw, in the different conditions, we saw two exceptional performances, and the other two heats were really good, 28-23 and good Cody. Like, it was the slowest of the heats, and yet it was a fabulous display as well, and it almost panned out exactly as we had talked about last week. So you always fear with any competition that it's going to break down, and it's going to, the good dogs will kind of fall by the wayside, a bit unfortunately, or whatever, for whatever reason, and you'll end up having a kind of a mediocre kind of latter stages. That's not the case, and the way the semi-finals have worked out, it's probably not going to be the case for the final. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say it's coming to a boil in just the right manner, Declan. The hindsight will tell us that the two real big guns, Swords Rex and Juby's Edison, have avoided each other in the semi-final. It could be a case of the stage is set for an unbelievable decider.
Absolutely. Swords Rex, I think, is reasonably well drawn for as bad as people make out, but it's a very tough heat. Three quick dogs on the inside, galloping Sydney. So they're two tough heats. The two obvious favourites certainly get everything right, but of course, as we know in greyhound racing, that doesn't always happen.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't. Let's talk about the heats in themselves. Tommy Lyons, heat one. It was wet. There was no question. There was water sitting on the surface. It couldn't have been too long before the heat when the rain actually did come down. As it was, Swords Rex popped out 3:30, 16:02, 28:20. I think it's safe to say you can take a considerable chunk of time off that when you consider that Crypto Punk gets a solo in behind, Russmore Pat gets a run in behind, no real traffic for them, and they're beaten 9.5 lengths. Crypto Punk into second, Cash and Miska ran on well to grab third, a length further back. How quick were you thinking Swords Rex on let's say the best of the surface on Saturday night would have gone? Are we talking 27:80?
Well, to my mind, you take what you see at face value, and what he did to Crypto Punk, who is, we've talked about a lot in the last few weeks, and through the Derby, how good a dog Crypto Punk has developed into. He left him standing. He absolutely left him and other good dogs standing. It was a phenomenal display. Another trainer, not Graham Holland, obviously, said to me, I think that Swords Rex run was a record run. That's what he felt it was. He said with that much water standing, particularly along the inside of the track, he said it was a phenomenal run, like we all kind of felt watching it. It looked, none of the sectionals stack up to what it was. None of them do. And the finishing time the same. 28:20 is still a fabulous run. That's the funny thing about it. But it was phenomenal. It really, really was. It's kind of hard to say, because you think like 15 minutes later, Galloping Sydney is doing three spots slower only. And if you put them in the same race in a dead match, one of them will be 10s on. That's the reality of it. So it was a phenomenal display. Crypto Punk ran okay. It was maybe a shade disappointed with him. But then again, it was Russmore Pat who had shown, who was one of the 2 unbeaten dogs going into the quarterfinals in the competition. He showed his pace to kind of, after missing it slightly, showed his pace to get to the second place momentarily, but his effort kind of told. And Kashimiska, who's a dog we've talked about, Ian, who was so inexperienced coming into the competition, found a way through to the semi-final. That's a brilliant display from Chris Houlihan's dog as well. So it was all about Swords Rex. What a performance it really was, building on last week, and hopefully we get the same this weekend, and then we'll have a final, as you say, to really savour.
Yeah, Declan, greyhound racing form usually does stack up, but it's not quite like the way you read form in horse racing, where you go a line through a line of form, and Crypto Punk did 28.19 the previous week. Russmore Pat did 28.28 the previous week, and neither could land a glove on Swords Rex. They couldn't even get in the same parish to land a glove on Swords Rex. So, like, the form stacks up.
It does, absolutely. And in fairness, in front, he's a very, very hard dog to peg back. I mean, it does stand up. The track was very wet at that stage. We could see, even watching in Dublin, you get that. So he has to be allowed that. And visually, what you see should always impress you as well, whatever the tells you. And the winner couldn't have done any more. And the other 2, under the circumstances, ran well.
Yeah, they certainly did a run okay in defeat, but it was very much a 1-dog affair. Cash and Miska, we've suggested, Tommy, that Chris Houlihan always gets one to the latter stages of the Laurels. She really did have to dig deep to qualify. Like, it's Russmore Pat she's picking up to claim the qualifying spot. She's beaten 10.5 lengths, but she's in the semi-finals of Laurels all the same. And who's to say what might happen next week? We Can Dream never happened for him. Missed a kick, never really involved. Millridge Bryce, same, could never really land a blow. In truth, nothing else could land a blow. It was all about Swords Rex. And yeah, I'm sure he'll start favourite ahead of the semi-finals. But as Declan alluded to, there is a very tricky draw we'll speak of a little bit later on. We'll move on to the second heat. Tommy, you started with you mentioned Galloping Sydney. He does a 3:28, 16:08. He's all about early speed. He loves that inside draw, and he got loose early. Price is King fast into stride, but Galloping Sydney took him into the opening corner, went on about it. Ballymaquispa, who seems to have less and less early speed these days than she ever did, but she absolutely hammered home. I suggested I thought she'd qualify. She certainly did. And again, the hotter things get, probably the better would suit her. She get a running behind them. And third went to Price's King, who in fairness probably had to battle a bit, because he was being swamped into the third bend and somehow came out of it in third and went on to finish in that position. I'll not be back. And both Slaney side Jimbo had shown a bit of pace, and Ballymac Bailey was also in the scene, but it was all about Galloping Sydney out front, 28-23. He's always been a greyhound that loved Curraheen Park, and this was a performance of a dog that showed that.
Yeah, it was a good performance. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, if you get, it's still the quarterfinals of Laurels and takes a bit of winning, but if you get trap one, you really have to be making the most of it. I think his record at trap one is, I think, it's perfect record. I think it's 3 from 3. Like, you have to make the most of it. You have to break and hold that line, and that's what he was able to do. I was a small bit disappointed with I'll not be back. And I wonder, maybe would something show up or something, but like, I felt she was positioned to maybe even win the heat where she was at the first bend, because she's a very strong stayer. Her sections early on anyway in the competition suggested that she can do a bit early. She mightn't do kind of, classic winning sectionals down the back, but then she stays again strongly, is what the sections early in the competition said. Now, that's not looking back to what she's been doing on other tracks, but I thought she was positioned to win it, maybe where she was. So she just didn't pick up. Ballymaquispa just did a Ballymaquispa on it. I'm afraid, you should. I don't even want to imagine what would need to happen for her to win a final, if you know what I mean. There would have to be so much trouble, somewhere along the way, because as you said, even though it's her sectional, she did 3:39 last week, she did 3:40 something the other night, 3:48 or something the other night. I mean, they're not horrific. They're not horrific by any means, but when you're in the Laurels, where early pace is key, they look very slow. They probably it exaggerates, how because she looks like she's further behind than her section.
The 3:48 would suggest she was very slowly in the stride, but it wasn't that. It was the next 20 or 30 strides. She just never got going at all. It looked like she was running through glue.
Does she really get going that early? She doesn't. Like, she's all about. In fairness to her track craft again is enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, certainly is. Declan, And Galloping Sydney, we saw him in the opening round of the Derby at Shelbourne Park, racing from Trap 1. He was subject to a bit of a plunge that night. There's no question the red jacket is where he wants to be. And it's all about early speed. And he's probably tailor-made for Cork.
He is. He seems to run that. But obviously, you would worry a bit about him the way he's drawn next Saturday. That's some very good dogs inside him. It's going to be very, very different. But he did everything right in Saturday. And I think Trap 1 in Curraheen is worth 4 lengths to a dog in 5-5. He certainly takes full advantage of it.
Yeah, Ballymacquist, we've seen plenty of her, Declan. Her future will be over further, no doubt.
Absolutely, yeah. And I would say she'll be stepping up. Should be going open trip, and she could be very exciting over longer trips, actually.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I'm a big fan. Price is King was back in third. He's a nice dog. He's good early speed. He moves well throughout, but he's not the Laurels winner in waiting.
Probably not. No. There's in all competitions there's dogs name the game, and it's tremendous for God so far. And look, it's good dog, but it's at this level there's no margin for error, and even with that. Dogs who can improve, who can do an exceptional run on the night. I mean, nothing was going to be sore Drex on Saturday night, So at that level, you've got to expect that, and qualifying is the name of the game.
Yeah, and he did qualify, got through in third behind Ballymacquist, and of course, a very impressive winner, Galloping Sydney. As Declan said, tricky draw the next night. We'll get to that a little bit later on. Heat 3, Declan. Good Cody, we've always known he's an exceptionally fast greyhound. In truth, this wasn't a heat that was very hard to read. We all suspected a Serene Ace would lead up in the inside, and if Good Cody turns anyway close to him, he'd probably pick him up. That's exactly the case. Good Cody's a very classy animal. Serene Ace is a very classy animal. He did 3:28, 16:03. I thought he'd probably do a bit faster than 16:03 at 28:34. It wasn't there on the clock, perhaps, for Good Cody, but still, we know how very fast this greyhound can be, and there's still a massive run in him. Still, you would never be surprised if he did a 27:90 run.
Absolutely not. And I mean, Serene Ace is still a very good dog, and the track had to be a little bit slow. The torrential rain that we saw earlier on. I wouldn't read too much into the clocks last Saturday night. Versatile dog. He's a strong dog. Doesn't have to lead. If he does, he is, a serious hound. So yeah. It went, I think, as we expected there, really.
Serene Ace is a dog that you don't want to be drawn against, even if he's not quite getting home over the trip around Curraheen at this time of the year. You don't want him on your inside, because one thing he's going to do is scream to a corner. That's right.
I mean, they're two very, very good greyhounds, no doubt about it, and they're both still very much in there.
Yeah, you're in danger of sort of just talking about those two, Tommy, but there's no question that Kilcolgan Comet, the penny has dropped to this fellow. It was a massive run by him the other night.
I thought he showed terrific pace, because we'll allow for the fact that Good Cody, it was a bit like what we talked about last week, where he was caught in behind dogs and was losing time on the clock more than anything else. The last day, when there were 2 dogs in front of him, there was no way he was going to get by them, and they were doing phenomenal time as well. But the other night there was one, and you could see he had a couple of points around the track where he wanted to kind of go by, but it just wasn't. The track wasn't conducive to it at the points he was trying early in the race. And there was even a point maybe down the third bend where I felt he lost maybe neck half a length, which could have proved a bit crucial. It didn't, as it happens. He didn't break either. Good Cody. He didn't break. If you stop it, he's nearly joint last, I think, out of the boxes. Showed terrific early pace to follow Serene Ace around. It was like, the conditions the other night, which we've talked about a bit, they wouldn't have been ideal for Serene Ace either now, for a dog who has to ping and go. And that probably contributed to him not finishing second, or maybe not even hanging on you, to win the race. But I thought Good Cody ran an exceptionally good race. And again, he's going to do the clock when, if maybe it won't happen for him, but I mean, when he gets a really good draw, some night, and gets a chance. Now it's gone so tight at this stage that mightn't occur in the Laurels itself. But he's a fabulous dog. Kilcolgan Comet, like you said, Ian, I just thought he showed terrific pace, absolutely terrific pace. And he's an inside seed runner from Trap 6 the other night. Now I know he was a middle seed or a wide seed at one stage of his career. But he showed terrific pace to pick up Serene Ace for second place. That's a big run.
Yeah, it is a big run. They were the three qualifiers. The other two there, New Win Nifty didn't really happen for him or for Drewby's Rocker, who missed the kick and was always sort of struggling to get involved. But no doubt about a winner. Good Cody, a good winner, Serene Ace, and Kilcolgan in the other order, actually. Kilcolgan Comet second, running on strongly. As I said, I think the penny's really dropping with this dog. I think he's one to keep an eye on. I think a step back up to 550 in time will certainly be in his favour, and Serene Ace running in third. He's still a big player because of that stunning early speed, although a tricky enough draw the next night. On to the last of the four heats, and myself and Tommy spoke briefly about this off air. Declan, for me, Drewby's Edison, more impressive on Saturday night than he was when he broke the clock the previous week. He seems to be getting over whatever issues he had before the Derby. It took him a while to come back to himself, but the other night, like Law Hill Roy pings out of trap one, he shows brilliant early speed to join him on the corner, and then he comes out of it second because Law Hill Roy is the inside line, flew down to the third, goes on, drives clear. Technically on the clock, he sets the standard with a 28:11 return. Now that race was rated 10 fast, whereas Swords Rex wasn't rated. Now, you can throw the ratings up in the air. As far as I'm concerned, they're just a grading tool. You work with your eyes. But Drewby's Edison, 28:11, brilliant run by a greyhound that really does seem to be coming back to his very, very best.
I'd say he's actually at his best now. I'd say this being, and he is red hot at the moment, and he must have a great chance of winning it out right now. It's a red horse, obviously, you know what I mean. And with Swords Rex and all in it, but Drewby's Edison at the moment is and he's. But he's, as you say, I think he's at his best now. This is as good as he's ever been. He's really on the ball. As you say, he didn't break. So the clock, I agree with you. I mean, I don't impressive anyway. They're different kind of runs, but it's superb, and the two of them have been kept in semi-finals, which is great. But of course, it's not just between the two of those, But he is a contender for sure.
Yeah. Second was one time only. A bit more encouragement from the defending champion, Declan. He had looked a bit flat in the previous two rounds. This was a much better run from him, from probably what was a less than ideal run out in trap 6, but he did pace up reasonably well. He took a bump on the corner. He's disputing for it into the back, and he comes through to be beaten with just a length and a half in 28:11. It's a hell of a run.
It's a very, very good run. And
trap 6, not a length and a half, sorry.
Yeah.
9.5, should I say.
I think trap 6 wouldn't have suited him at all, to be honest with you. So it's quite sure. So he's coming back to something like the form he had last year, which is would just.
JT Wexford was the third qualifier. He's not a superstar, but he's just one of those consistent type of dogs that always finds a way to get through. And here he is. He's in the semi-finals of another major competition.
He is, but I do think these. Definitely are more. He's doing very well. I wouldn't have thought Cork would. He's doing fine, and as you say, he's gone through another round, which is fantastic.
Yeah, he sure has. Tommy, Drewby's Edison. As Declan said, this is him at his best. Whatever about the inexperience and puppiness he had in his early stage, we always knew he was brilliant. He had that spell after coming back from injury where he was just trying to find himself. The other night, I'd certainly have it higher than his track record breaking run. I thought it was a stunning run.
I think that's very important to say, because we talked about how Swords Rex might have been a record run. That might have been a record run too. Lochil Roy kind of went up in front of him and got a bump at the bend. I love the pace he was showing into the bend from Drewby's Edison. I think he's an absolute penalty kick in the semi-finals from the draw. If he shows the same sort of form, he'll show enough early pace to lead the inside dogs to the bend, and it'll be all over because he stays forever. We have to remember too, when an 82-pound dog gets a setback, you've got to give him time. You can't rush him. And I do remember talking to somebody who had been chatting to Robert before the Derby and saying, look, I would have loved 2 or 3 more weeks, but you just can't rush a dog back to
he said that to me at the last trial session. He ended up giving him a hand slip because the 5.25-yard boxes were acting up that day. And he just didn't feel he was ready for a 5.50. Now, that showed in the following weeks. He just said, I just needed a little bit more time with him.
And this is the joy of it, because we talked about this dog in Limerick, and we talked about him in the past, because obviously he's been turning up in traditionally all the best competitions. You know what I mean? Right? He's been pitched in right at the deepest possible end from the very start of his career. And sometimes when they get lost in that through an injury or whatever, we can almost disregard them or underrate them or whatever else. But Declan's right. This is him at his very best. What he showed the other night was phenomenal. I mean, Swords Rex might have been a record run, and if he had broken the record on a dry track, there's no saying that Drubys Edison wouldn't have broken it again, because he would these are two phenomenal dogs. I just love the fact that we're talking about a Laurels that's this good, because I don't think we've talked about Laurels this good, genuinely this good, for a very, very long time. I can't even remember the last one. You can imagine, even just looking at the heats, if you could get, I don't want to disparage anybody who's involved in it, but like, you could have Swords Rex, Good Cody, maybe one time only, Serene Ace, Drubys Edison, and you could have some of the other ones in there to make a race for the ages. Like, it would be that good. Like, even though you would think it's boiled down to a match in some ways between Swords Rex and Drubys Edison, the draw is so important. Declan said it earlier on about he thinks the trap one has been about 4 lengths in Curraheen Park. I've been saying it for years. It's a golden highway to be in there and get that sweep and run around the bend. Maybe something else, like maybe Serene Ace gets trap one in the final, and all of a sudden you're looking, can Drubys Edison clear it? Can Swords Rex get across from 4? Just say, in theory, you know what I mean? This competition isn't over yet, even though we've got 2 absolute standout performers. It's amazing to say that it's still possible that neither of them will win it.
Yeah, it's not the first time they've met in a major competition. They both met in the final of the Conanani Kirby Memorial earlier in the year at Limerick. Of course, Swords Rex came out top on that occasion. Drubys Edison was back in 5th after things didn't go right for him. They're both a clear and sort of obvious, a term I never thought I'd be hearing myself say. They're both evidence of the new way of bringing dogs through. One went to Clonmel, one went to Tralee. That's where they were introduced onto the Kirby and then into the big time. And it just seems to be the way that Irish greyhound racing is going, that if you have a dog good enough, you either target them at Clonmel for the rural kennels unraced, or you go to Tralee for the Juvenile Classic, then straight into the Kirby. And these are evidence of it, that they've had time to sort of now discover themselves, find their feet, fill into their frames, and we're seeing the evidence that it's proving a very successful sort of a pathway.
Yeah, it is, and that's and it's kind of the way it should be. Yes, you always want dogs to come from left field and come from all the tracks around the country, but that is like, if you've got a pup that's looking, it's showing something a little bit special at home, you kind of have your little roadmap to the Derby in theory. But like, there's a lot of money to be picked up along the way if you can pick up these prestigious events. Like, it is kind of almost a natural kind of a line, and that's the way it should be. That's the way the program should be set out. So. Yeah, long way.
Declan, if Swords Rex wins, if he wins the Laurels, he would have brought his prize money to over 120,000. Now, that's without winning a Derby. It's pretty remarkable.
It is. It is. Yeah, and he was outstanding in Limerick. Here again, he just might have been right for the Derby. Graham said he just hadn't been right. He would, I think, ideally would like on Shelbourne before the Derby, but that just wasn't possible with one thing and another. But he's an outstanding. He'll be there again next season, hopefully.
It's funny, we're talking about 2 dogs that were under an injury cloud coming into the Derby, and it showed. They just didn't produce their best, and yet here we are a matter of weeks later, and they're absolutely flying. And yet all I can think of is, when I'm looking at the 2 of them, while they are very much worthy favourite and second favourite for the Laurels, whatever order they decide to place them this morning, I still look at both of them and go, God, I can't wait to see them back over 550 yards at Shelbourne Park, because they really do look like 550-yard greyhounds. Of
course, and there's all next season to come. With these, say, the Derby, it's all there for them. But obviously, Connection will want to win this huge competition now. And as Tom was saying, it isn't just between the 2 of them. It is Serena, Good Cody, and those guest trap won the final. Then we're looking at a whole new, or one time only, guest trap won the final again.
Well, let's take a look at the semi-finals, because Declan, you alluded to it earlier on. We'll take a look at the first heat for a moment. The first heat: Ballymac in 1, Kilcolgan Comet 2, Drubys Edison 3, CryptoPunk 4, Serene Ace 5, and Cashmiska 6. It's as simple as, Serene Ace or CryptoPunk are going to absolutely need to fly out of boxes to contain Drubys Edison into the corner. Even then, they're going to really struggle to hold him from the sort of halfway mark home. I think Drubys Edison will be I'm not even saying odds-on chance. I think it'd be a relatively long odds-on chance from trap 3 here. I think Crypto Punk and Serene Ace would be the obvious two. Ballymac Whisper look to be running on. Kilcolgan Comet is running very well. And if he happened to clear Ballymac Whisper early on and got onto that fence, he's a player. Cash and Misco will be a huge price for Chris Houlihan. But that doesn't mean she can't make the frame if there's any sort of traffic problems. Do you see it any other way, Tommy? It's as simple as Drewby's Edison, just get a clear run to the corner. He'll take the world of beating.
I'm kind of hoping Declan will make some case why he can't possibly win, so we might get a prize Saturday night. I'm
waiting for Declan to make his case for Cash and Miskin, to be honest.
I'm absolutely like she's a smashing bitch, Cash and Miskin.
Yeah,
she really is,
no question.
In fairness to her, and you know what? Chris said to me the other night. He said, "We haven't seen it yet, but she can break. She can fly out." We haven't just seen it, so he's open.
We're going to need to see it.
Yeah. Look at now. You never know. I tell you what, she's 20 with seven or 8 runs on her card. She has 28.50 on the clock already. So
yeah, I think you don't realize you actually don't realize how lightly raced she is. She's never finished out of the frame.
Yeah, exactly. And to be hoping that'll continue for at least 2 more weeks. Look at it. I'm Ballymac Whisper was a 1. I mean, you couldn't handpick that any better. If you're not going to be in trap 1 yourself, you say you want that. Kilcolgan Comet doesn't break. 346, 341, 215, 336, 338. None of them are. They're fine. They're fine, but they're not competing with the best early pace. Crypto Punk, I think he got put in his place a little bit the other night. Now it's not entirely his run, but at the same time, we kind of little bit hit a bit of a bump in the road with him. And Serene Ace has a tricky draw, absolutely has to ping from 5. And I don't think it's not going to dive left. It's Serene Ace, as far as I'm concerned, is not going to dive left. So
he's enough experience. He's been there, done that at this stage.
Oh no, he's a clever tracker. I watched some of his race from 5 there recently, and although he missed it, he showed pace up. And okay, he was tracking because there were dogs in front of him, whatever race, but he kept his line. He didn't want to. Some dogs just want to go in, and that's it. He doesn't. Which means that even if he broke very well, Drewby's Edson's pace into the bend should allow him to take that inside line. And he's just a powerhouse, and could not be in better form. So I mean, I think I can't go for anything else apart from Drewby's Edison.
Yeah, Declan, myself, and Tommy would have an even 50 with you if you want to lay us Drewby's Edison.
I'm sure you would. I can't see him. I think Tom, the 6 bit is the best drawn in the race.
She is.
That's one small thing to say, but she's pretty inside. Serene Ace could lead, and will make a race. If Serene Ace, so then Drewby has to get everything right in behind it. It's over this distance, you can't take too many errors. But he's the best dog on form at the moment, and he's improved each week. And the draw couldn't really have worked out better for him. I think he's as well drawn out as he was in 1.
I think that's a clean sweep from the 3 of us. We're all expecting Drewby's Edison to land the spoils.
Yes.
Onto the second semi-final. And Declan, you made the point that Swords Rex, the draw could have worked out an awful lot better. There's early speed in 1, 2, 3, 5. 5 is going to be cutting or edging inwards. I'm not going to say cutting inwards. I expect him to cut inwards one night from trap 3 or 4 in Shelbourne, and he didn't do it as much as he had done in his early starts, like Serene Ace or something like that. He's probably just developing that sort of a racing brain at this point. But Swords Rex would want to be hitting the lids, like he want to be doing his last week was the quarterfinals, his second round run when he flashed out to lead the likes of Bocco's Budsis, and what else was in against him that night? Drewby's Edison, was he? No, I can't remember. But Swords Rex from 4 will need to be doing things right, or else he could find himself pretty short in room early.
He will, he will, and the dogs. Well, Price is King. I'm not sure. He certainly will be coming home. Good Cody could get out, and he could be hard to peg back. One time only is coming back to his best, but I wouldn't say yet. So I think Swords Rex should win it, but it's not like the first semi-final. There's no odds on shot here.
Yeah, it's the sort of race, Tommy, if you were going to be betting odds on about Swords Rex, you'd want to do it after 5 yards.
Oh, I don't want to back him at odds on at all. In fact, I'll probably just watch the race, but I do want him to win because I want Drewby's Edison to qualify, and I want a 6 really good dogs in the final to make it. I don't want a clear and obvious winner of the final. That's the last thing I kind of want. I look at Swords Rex is pure class at his best, and he did a 317 out of trap 5. I mean, if he does a 320 out of 4, he'll win on Saturday night, next Saturday night. If he does a 322 or 3, he'd probably win all right. If he does a 330, he might be in a small bit of trouble. You know,
the one thing we haven't mentioned about him the last 2 weeks, well, we have mentioned it, but we haven't really sort of driven the point home, is he's doing exceptional clocks from the third bend home. He's very strong.
He has pace everywhere. He just I mean, like the run the other night, considering the surface water was ridiculously good. Yeah. It really was from start to finish. Even though the sections are obviously they're not going to compare. They're not going to compare to previous weeks. You go from a 317 to a 330. You already lost 2 lengths there effectively. You come back to what was it? 1602? Was it 16?
Yeah, 1602. Yeah,
1602. Yeah, and then so like they're not, but he's pure class. Hey, one time only. Tommy O'Donoghue is doing a fantastic job of one time only, and clearly the fact that he trials there and whatever else, and the dog won a Laurel, the dog likes the track and whatever familiarity. But even though he's not at the top of his game yet, I have to say I thought he ran very well behind Gary Road Joe the previous week. And I don't think he's a lost cause to be in a final. I have to say, now, good Cody. Declan made a good point there. He's like, that was a fabulous run the other night to win, but he's very slightly below his best. And that's where he is. It's only a couple of lengths, but when you come to a Laurels with good Cody and Droobies Edison and Swords Rex and Droobies Edison in it, that might be enough to get you in trouble. He's a class dog. I mean, you can set your clock.
The key to good Cody's race is he needs to trap on terms with Price is King. Now, good Cody's weak point is often his trapping. But if he does trap in terms of Price is King, I think there's no doubt he leads Price is King around the opening corner. And then all of a sudden he's in a lovely pitch.
He went from 322 the previous week to 333, which again is a length and a half or so.
Yeah, I think he can take a length off the 333 on most of those splits the other night.
I think so. I think so. But he actually didn't break. No, he didn't break. It was just that he had the pace up again, and that, as you said, that's kind of his Achilles heel, is that he can
often for good Cody, breaking on terms is a good start.
Yeah, because he has an acceleration that can break. Like, to be honest about it, he really needs to be clear on Price of King quite quickly.
Yeah, it's a bit unfair to ask you, because this is going to be a Laurels where you'll need to see the final draw. But at this stage, Tommy, if you had to pick one, what would it be?
It really does depend on the draw, because if you put Swords Rex out in 4 or 5 and Droobies Edison in 1 or 2 with a slow starter in 1, you say Droobies Edison gets the run and he's so powerful. But like if Swords Rex was 317 like he did last week, Saturday week, there's nothing would beat him.
Yeah,
I mean, I have to say, I'd still very slightly favor Swords Rex, but I mean, I'd celebrate either of them winning because they're so good.
Yeah, Declan, it's hard to argue that point, really, isn't it?
If Swords Rex gets through on Saturday, then he's the one.
Yeah,
waiter the semi-finals are drawn at this stage if it favors Droobies Edison.
Yeah, I'm sad to say I won't be at this Laurels final. Isn't that typical? The one Laurels, like there've been unbelievable Laurels finals in recent years, but this one really is just shaping up to be so good. You know, with all due respect to the remaining Greyhounds, but let's say a Droobies Edison, a Serene Ace, a good Cody, a one time only, a Swords Rex, those 5 and another are in a final. Like that's as good as it gets. That's as good as it gets, guys, isn't it?
Yeah, that's some race, all right.
I'd say there's great atmosphere down at Curraheen at the moment, Tommy. There was great racing in the undercard. The Bart Lee, Memorial Stake is on, and the Jerry Hennerty now joins Saturday night proceedings. $2,000 for every race and final night. I know Shelbourne Park the other night that Hello Hammond won in some style. I think Mr. Hennessy has already booked he's paid for a little bit of petrol. He's going to make his way down to Curraheen Park for the 750 on the night. Should be a very, very special occasion.
It is going to be, and there is because you know yourself the way things have been over the last number of years with everything in the world, let alone greyhound racing. People are just delighted to be back in the kind of swing of things, and the fact that this Laurels is so good. It's when people come together the way the friends and supporters have over the last few years to support the Laurels, and when they come together and you've gone through a bit of hard times, you have to really celebrate how good this is. So it's building up to something a bit special. There's going to be a huge crowd. I mean, a huge crowd for the final. A lot of people booked in already. A lot of buses and coaches arriving. So it's it's going to be something special.
Declan,
you won't be there.
No, sadly not. We saw this year, Declan, from certainly a Derby standpoint, that we have to make the most of these occasions, the big nights in the sport. We have to make them a real sense of occasion, a party, a celebration of all that's great in our sport. Because if you don't on the big nights, well, what chance do you have in the small nights?
Absolutely. I think, as Tommy says, there's a feel-good factor now because we're back, and the COVID, we won't say it's gone because it's not the way it was. You know what I mean? And there's all that, and certainly this year's Derby final was incredible. Sheer crowd, everything. It was just buzzing. The track was, it was one of the best Derby we've had for years, and a great final too. So I'm sure it'll be the same in Curraheen, and it just, as you say, there's great dogs in it. Be great final. It's a fine track. Everything is going for. Can't legislate for an Ireland, of course, is the weather. I mean, this year we've had racing off through heat waves, through months. Else, that's the one thing you can't. But it should be a fantastic night down there. Yeah, but I'd say pretty good down there as well.
Yeah, the one thing with Curraheen you just don't want is I hate to mention the word fog. There are times where the fog comes in down over the river, Tommy. I just hope that we be able to see the dogs at the third bend in the Laurels final. Anyway, listen, the very best of luck to everybody at Curraheen Park over the next week or two, because it really is boiling down to being a wonderful, wonderful competition. I'm sad to say I won't be here next Monday to discuss the final. I won't be at the Talking Dogs Roadshow, which is on next Tuesday night, the 1st. Tommy, you'll be there, joined by Barry Call, sprouting a shirt of some variety, I'm sure. Something that will be a little bit more garish than my likes or myself or Declan would wear. And Can Hughes is coming over from the UK, great talker, Can. A couple of other special guests. If you want to go to the Talking Dogs Roadshow next Tuesday night at Curraheen Park, please do express your interest on Talking Dogs website. One dog that won't be there on Laurel's final night, gentlemen, I just want to give it a mention, is Skywalker Barry, a dog who has been quite a star around Curraheen Park and Shelbourne Park and Waterford and you name it. Basically every top competition over the last 2 to 3 years, his name has appeared. He's been one of the truly great and consistent greyhounds of recent times. Well, I was told last night that he has run his final race. Ray Patterson described him as the best he ever had. And for a man who's won a Derby, an Oaks, a Ledger, those are strong words. Michael O'Donoghue said it's going to be impossible to replace a dog like Barry, because dogs like Barry don't come around too often, Declan. I think that's safe to say.
For sure. And if Ray says he's the best, that says it all. But we've seen it about ourselves. And you mentioned the word consistency. And I think in any, it is the ultimate test. And my God, he was certainly that. Wonderfully consistent, a very genuine. The dog really had everything. It's a shame that he won't be around much longer, but he's been around. And maybe the edge was just gone out slightly, which will happen us all at some stage, no doubt. But
I'm hoping it doesn't go off me now for another while. Yeah, Tommy, Skywalker Barry, you would have seen him down at Curraheen Park. You would have seen him a couple of times in Shelbourne Park, I'm sure, in the flesh over the years. Just a remarkably fast greyhound, great early speed, big down the back, stays at well. He used to run off that final bend, but once he straightened up, he kicked again, and just a remarkably consistent greyhound. It's sad to say that he won't be racing again, but I'm sure he'll have big plans in the stud game.
If you haven't seen Skywalker Barry live, you've been hiding under a rock for about 3 or 4 years.
As Damien Lonergan says, as he always uses the term, sure, you know yourself, like he's danced every dance.
Yeah, class act, class dog.
Yeah, no, listen, the very best of luck, Barry, in your retirement. It's been an absolute joy and a pleasure to call you home on so many occasions, be it in classics, in open races, and I was going to say graded races. I don't think I've ever seen him in a graded race, and we certainly won't at this point. Gentlemen, we now talk about the younger generation, because we are going to turn our attention to Shelbourne Park. Declan, we had a wonderful Juvenile Derby. I was lucky enough to be in the restaurant with young Mr. Lyons on the opening round night, and I gave him my nap of the evening. Was Clona Duke, and he was chinned on the line by 3 cannons. That was a heartbreaking affair. But I decided that he had a big chance in the Derby, and I backed him at 50-1 each way for small money. The trumpet is just there. I've got to blow it now at some point later on in the day. pleasantly surprised to see him going around in front, but you said it earlier on. I didn't expect it. I would have taken fourth for my each way money ahead of racing. But in the end, it was the dog that was 5 months younger than his nearest rival, the dog that was far from the finished article. And I suppose you could say the same for each of the finalists. They all will improve. But this dog was probably furthest from being the finished article, ahead of Saturday's decider. But just this was one of those runs. Things went well from the three fast starters, missed the kick somewhat, like the sectionals would suggest that nothing took a flyer. Bogger Hunter just got in the way a little bit of Droopy's got it. Three cannons popped out of three, but she was never going to hold Clonagh into the corner. Once he went to the front, there was a certain ability from between the opening two bends. He was never going to be picked up.
Absolutely. By far the youngest the final. And he's also, I also think experience comes into these puppy finals, but it didn't here. Right on the night, and he won it on merit. There's no doubt about it. A superb. You know, those puppy finals are strange because often the dogs that have there's two dogs that only lost once and only lost twice. Those dogs are often up against it because they've dominated all their qualifying trials, they've their races, and suddenly they're in with five dogs equally as good as themselves, and they find themselves behind dogs at the first bend, and they've never been there before. You know, it can be tough for them. It is on the night. He broke well, went up well. He stays forever. He's a very, very exciting dog. He didn't look the winner, the obvious winner beforehand, but he certainly was the best night, no question.
Yeah, Tommy Clonagh, just given his youth, his inexperience, his pedigree, he's extremely well bred. Like he's Coulivanny Pearl, like he's from a very, very fast family. Of course, Clonagh Blaze won the Easter Cup a couple of years back, a half brother to him for Kevin O'Brien and for Graham Holland. And here he is with Clonagh, a really exciting prospect to look forward to. And of course, Kevin, while he doesn't sound like a Cork man, he's living down in Clonakilty, house the Clonagh. I'd say there was plenty of happy people down that direction.
Yeah, I thought I was expecting a trumpet at halfway in. I swear to
there was a hint of surprise in my voice off the second bend or off the first bend.
Well, look, I couldn't have picked him out as the leader, and yet he showed a lovely bit of pace to take a length. Now, had another Holiday who'd been beset by bad draws recently, had another Holiday been drawn inside him, it might have been a different story, or might have had to work hard to get there. But because another Holiday ran its heart out from sixth, and just the draw kind of hampered it, or I can't say it made a difference in winning and losing, but it definitely affected its chance. Droopy's got him missed it completely. Got a little bit of a decent run, but still ran a super race in defeat. But like Clonagh is just so young. When he went around in front, as I said, Graham Holland was in Curraheen the other night. And I said to him, not a bad hour, Graham. He says, it's the type of one you dream of. He was after having key winners in the Laurels.
Two quarterfinal winners and three winners in a row in Shelbourne, including the two big finals.
Yeah, and just to add to it, I did, and in fact, he didn't even know. I said to him, geez, Gates, Nemo won as well. He said, what? He hadn't even tried. He had so much on between washing dogs down after the race and everything else that he hadn't even time to look at that. It was a phenomenal hour. But Clonagh was just like, if we could just go back to the puppy derby, forget this juvenile rubbish and maybe go back a month and whatever else. It's what you want. I know they're all really good dogs, and Droopy's got it is probably a bit more, even though he's not very experienced, he's still probably a bit more mature age wise and whatever. But you want a next year or a March 21 pup. You want something like that to win a puppy derby and be the star of next year and have so much potential to still improve. Do you know what I mean?
He was the only dog that was going to qualify for the Conn Kirby. You know, because in commentary, I was nearly tempted to say, will we have another Easter Cup challenger in the future? But sure, it's all about the Conn Kirby. He's a March 21. Well, if you had to price it up now, he's bang there up right amongst the favourites.
You were losing the run yourself, Ian.
That offered you back a 50-1 winner, lads. Given the year that was in it, I had two dogs backed in derbies that were in 7-4 ahead of the quarterfinals, and both were chinned. And here we are. I had a 50-1 backed after the first round, and he's still 20-1 in the final. And Declan wouldn't have backed him at 20s.
No, absolutely. But well done.
Yeah. No, he is an exciting dog, and I think that 20-1 doesn't really sort of tell the true story. He's a very, very fast greyhound, having just his 8th career start. The world really is his oyster. Malachi's made a very bright start to his stud career also, Declan.
Very much so. Very much. That's a good point that you're making. And as we said, I mean, that might explain his price. Well, he was 5 months younger than anything else. And he was in against some hot opposition there, you know. And but it's on the night, and 5-2-5 fans and that's generally game over. And it certainly was on Saturday. No doubt about it.
He may well appear in Limerick in a couple of one-off races early in the year next year. I have no doubt he'll certainly be giving a look around the place pretty early, I'd imagine. On to the final of the, well, once again, congratulations to Kevin O'Brien and to Graham Holland on their tremendous success with Clonard Duke. You won't hear me complaining about it. On to the final of the Yvonne Barry Track Bookmaker Open 600. Crafty Kokoro was understandably the warm favourite, but there was a little bit concern over the draw with Bobsleigh Dreamin' too. We knew she would edge into the fence, and as she was, it happened. And while it wasn't heavy bumping, it was just enough to put the two of them off their stride. They never really got involved. In contrast, Bocco's Crystal, Declan, on a night where the track was going reasonably well without absolutely flying, she produced a 32.07 run. Sensational display by this lady. It was the way in which she led her kennel companion and brother Bocco's Palace into the corner as comfortably as she did that really paid to anyone else's chances. She flew into the corner, and once she went to the front, in reality, there was never really any danger of her getting picked up.
No, there wasn't. And all credit to Yvonne Barry for sponsoring this stake and over the most popular distance there is.
Yeah,
which is a 600, and nothing like your 50-to-1 winner. But I must admit, I had Bocco's the first round of this. I thought she was outstanding.
Where's the trumpet, Declan? Where's the trumpet?
Up behind her that night and barely caught her on the line. It was the first time over 600. She had a momentum, and I think she would have won Saturday no matter what happened behind her. You know, she it didn't actually break brilliantly. And if you look at it again,
she showed immediate acceleration. Like she got racing so quickly.
The Jack Tavern dog actually, they both slightly coming out, but then she just that great. And the long run bend, of course, is perfect for her. And that pace really kicks. Point that only kind of always said the 550 suits the early pace that was more than 525. Run they get, they can really dominate. They can put their speed and their power to good use. A bit of bumping on the inside, but that's if you're not in front, you tend to get bumped in these finals. And but and also in fairness, Crafty's been on the go a long time. Even towards the end of last season, Crafty was brilliant in the Crunkle Cullen, was superb throughout the Derby, and she ran a cracker again on Saturday night. You know, when you're coming from behind in Shelbourne all the time, it does get difficult in finals. It just gets more difficult, you know. But a brilliant winner and some very, very good. And Crafty Kokoro didn't need to win that to prove her outstanding brilliance. She's been one of the Greyhounds of the year. You know.
Yeah, I think we all agree with that. Crafty Kokoro, as you said, she's been on the go like since the Corncool Cullen. She came back for the Corncool Cullen. She had another 750. Then she had a prep run for the Derby. She ran through the Derby straight into this. It's a lot of running. I'm sure she'll be given a few weeks off now. I'm hoping we'll be seeing her at the back end of the year, maybe for the Winter Racing Festival. Perhaps they have another target in mind. Tommy, Bocco's Crystal. It's safe to say, like, it was clear from the early stages of this one's career, she showed unbelievable pace in that unraced stake down at Curraheen. You could see she was learning on the job. She was very inexperienced. Here she is now. She's close enough to the finished article. She's extremely versatile, but versatile doesn't tell the full story. She's really classy. She's big early speed. She's big down the back. She stays very strongly. Like to win a final of a 600-yard competition at Shelbourne Park after two hard races the previous 2 weeks is testament to her strength and her toughness, basically.
Like she was 22 months making her debut, which is kind of late enough for bitches, really. So, and she trialed in February, she trialed in April, she trialed in June, she ran in the middle of June. Kind of, obviously there was something that just kind of needed development along the way that just kind of prevented her starting that little bit earlier, like you expect with bitches. She's come a long way in a very short time, and she has phenomenal early pace. I mean, even the runs behind Crafty Kokoro and Bobsleigh Dream in the previous rounds were serious runs. And as Declan said, you know, reading the race, you could say she had a great chance if she could do the same again. She's a classy lady. And you know what we're forgetting is she had 16 runs, is it? Yeah, 7 wins, 7 seconds, and she's been last twice. She's there's no reason why she can't improve, even though, you know, she's August 20, but she can improve again. She's truly top class.
Yeah, she is truly top class. Like, if you actually look at her defeats, you forget about the first few around Curraheen, because it just, she was just a child at that. In Shelbourne, she'd been beaten by Crafty Coral. She found traffic in the Derby when she got knocked out, so she finished last on that occasion. Forget that. She's been by Ballinaboula Ed, Crafty Coral, and Bobsleigh Dream. It's taken really, really top class performers to beat her, and yet, we are talking about a bitch that could go on to achieve anything next year. She's just really, really talented. The fact that she stays 600 yards shouldn't take away the fact that she has blinding early speed. And while there will be razor sharp ladies like in the likes of the Oaks, you could see her certainly in the latter stages of the Oaks, and it's back over 550 yards then for the Derby next year, you'd imagine. I knew from early about her. The night of the English Derby, she ran in the semi-finals of that stake in Curraheen, and I met Bev Lockheed after racing a Toaster, and she showed me the video of the bitch. She hadn't been on my radar. She showed me the picture of the video of the bitch winning her semi-final at Dennis Linden Solicitors, and you could just see that night that she was very quick. But even the way Bev was talking about her, I think they'd known for quite some time that she had a bit of an engine.
Yeah, sorry, they did from the start. And you know what? If you were like you said, Ian, learning on the job, Curraheen Park in a hot competition isn't exactly the place to go, because there's going to be, because there's so much early pace, you can't afford to not be an early pacer. You're going to have to learn how to track. You learn very, very quickly. It's a school of hard knocks if you're in at that level, and you're a little bit green. So I mean, she looked, and I know there were novices in the competition or whatever else, but you know what you're getting when you go into that type of novice. The Dennis Linden is always a good competition. So yeah, they obviously thought a fair bit of her, and I don't know. Maybe did they think maybe she might be a Laurels bitch, that she had that early pace, but obviously she shows that early pace and she stays extremely well. So she has a kind of a perfect combination. And I think you're right, 100% right, Ian, about the Oaks. I mean, she has developed. There's no problem now. Like, I know her last 6 runs, 5, 6, 7, 8 runs were 9 to 10 even. Geez, they're all 550, 550, 600. I don't think there's any problem dropping her back to 550. I really don't, especially as she matures, or 525, especially as she matures next year.
Yeah, no, great winner. Congratulations to Graham again, and to Bev Lockheed, Bev and Graham Box. This is, they put a lot of money into the Greyhounds. They have some very fast dogs. Of course, they've won a Derby in the past, and they've had some real superstars. But they have another one here in Bucco's Crystal, and I look forward to seeing her wherever she turns up. It was a wonderful card on Saturday night, Declan. When RPG TV come into town, they really do put the effort in. We had a wonderful open 750, a wonderful open 575. We had a couple of brilliant performances. Mert Lahey had a remarkable treble. That's on top of Graham Holland having a remarkable 4-timer. I know Carl Ramsbottom after racing was said to be like, he was sick of looking at the backside of Mert Lahey. I think he was second to him in 2 of the races. He also had a second to a Hennessy in the 750. Hello Hammond, a brilliant winner of the 750, but I thought Pablo Escobar ran a big race in second. Just a great night's racing all in all.
It was, yeah. That Hello Hammond was awesome. I mean, that was an incredible performance. I thought Murt's 3 winners were good. Did third race? What's that? Come Sid? That
here comes Sid.
Here comes Sid. That looks something.
Yeah, he can run. I got a bit excited about that one, and I got called out on Twitter by our friend Damien Lonigan. I say friend, calling me out on Twitter for getting excited. If you can't get excited about a dog like this, I think you're in the wrong game.
Yeah, that was. I'm just amazed that was on. So obviously there's a reason he hadn't raced since, but for the first race back and to be in at that level on the race like he did, and he gave them all the leads. He was actually last the first bend, which is the last thing that you need, but that's for sure.
Yeah, no, lots to look forward to. Great crop of greyhounds around at present. I just want to give a final mention to the Fair Warrior on Sunday afternoon. It was on RPG TV. They still are a bit bemused by the third bend finishing line. It looked like Mustang Joey was a bit bemused by it too in the opening heat. He was sort of easing into that third bend, getting himself ready to turn. And in the end, he only held on by they declared a neck. It looked more like a head to me. In truth, though, everyone looking at it thought he was beaten, because the angle was so tight on that third bend. he's on the outside and the dog up the inside. Oh, excuse me, I have to look him up again. I wrote about it this morning. I can't remember. That's the brain. Downstream Chief looked like he got there in the end. He's beaten Neck, hard to believe, in 21:42. Mustang Joey, a good winner for Jim Darcy and Paul Horrig. Of course, Paul, a big supporter of Irish Greyhound Racing. And then the second heat went to Gizmo Cash. He's a very special sprinter, Declan. Another track record to add to his tally. He did 21:06, flew out, made every inch of the running. He's now the track record holder at Mullingar and, of course, at Shelbourne Park. And if he wins this Fair Warrior, he's certainly a leading contender for Sprinter of the Year.
He is, yeah. We've had a very good year with sprinters at the right time. He's very, very fast. Even the best of sprinters missed. There's nothing we can do about that. You know, that's the nature of the beast, but certainly he is very, very good.
Yeah. Tommy, you ever in Mullingar?
I was a couple of years ago. It's kind of quirky, but even the stand, it's kind of quirky. You can nearly step out from the stand and out from indoors onto the track. It's that close to it. It's a quirky place, but it's likable. There's something a little bit different about it.
And there's a great local support about the place, and I'm sure it'll be packed next Sunday afternoon for the final of the Matchbook Fair Warrior. Again, congratulations to all involved down at Mullingar, and of course to Keely and Jamie McGee with their track record breaker Gizmo Cash. He'll need to be doing things right in the final. He's in 4. Braymore Rory is in trap 3, who has a tendency to take a step right at boxes. So keep an eye on that. That's an insight into what my preview will say on Sunday. Gizmo Cash certainly the one to beat. However, joining him will be Mustang Joey, Downstream Chief, 39 Winks, who recovered after a very slow start, airport flying, and the aforementioned Braymore Rob. Anything else to mention, Tommy?
We've talked enough. Ian. I'm telling you, I'm trying every week to keep you to 40 minutes, and it's never worked yet. Barry Call next week, he'll be fine. We'll fly through it.
I have to tell you, Barry Call talks more rubbish than I do. Declan, anything to add?
No, I that one. It was a very good. It was nice seeing the other winner there went up. That was a very good run. Beat Sentimental Lad.
Druby's nice one. Sorry, you cut out there briefly. Druby's nice one. Yeah, she looks tailor-made for those sort of distances. She loves the long run to the corner. She stays every inch of it.
She is, but the lead is and to be ahead of him at the first bend, that you know, and Sentimental Lad came back at her, of course, as you would expect. But that was a moment. But yeah, look, it's just superb racing, and the great thing now, it's all year long. We're racing from one end of the year to the other, and that's fantastic. I think actually you mentioned Winter Festival. I think that's year. It's very late, I think.
Yeah, it's very late because of a certain Stetson wearing country singer who took up Croke Park for quite some time. He pushed everything back by a week or two, and Shelbourne Park just couldn't afford to take 2 nights out from the hectic big busy Christmas schedule. So it's pushed back to the 29th and 30th of December, Thursday and Friday. Put it in your diaries. It should be a wonderful Christmas festival. I spoke to Willie Hamlin on Saturday night at Shelbourne, and he confirmed that that's the plan for Born Warrior. It's something that Jennifer herself has mentioned a few times about Born Warrior, that they're looking to bring him back for the Winter Racing Festival and give him a go at it, and then I'm sure he'll get a break before the Easter Cup and the likes. But yeah, all roads lead to the Winter Racing Festival. Plenty in between then, of course. We have the final of the Laurels on November 5th, which will be live on RPG TV. The same night, Shelbourne Park will be hosting the Puppy Oaks final from Shelbourne Park, and both of those will be live on RPG TV. I think that's the first 2 tracks from Ireland on RPG TV in the one night. It's an occasion not to be missed, which I will be missing. I will be wearing my Mickey Mouse ears at the time, dragging 3 children around and paying exorbitant amount of money for probably hot dogs and the likes. Anyway, gentlemen, thanks so much indeed. Declan, a pleasure as always. You bring so much, I suppose, what's kudos to the thing. Like when myself and Tommy just talk rubbish, you just talk sense. Tommy,
you too.
Good luck. Best of luck next Tuesday night at the road show. I hope it all goes well without me. I'm sure Barry will steer you in the right direction. But that's it from us on this Monday evening. It's been a pleasure to talk about the friends and supporters of Cork Greyhound Racing Irish Laurels. It really is a wonderful classic. And once again, congratulations to Kevin O'Brien, Graham Holland on their success with the wonderful Clona Duke in the RPG TV Juvenile Derby, and of course to the winners of the Yvonne Barry Open 600, Bocco's Crystal for Bev and Graham, and of course trainer Graham Holland. Wonderful weekend's racing, but that's it from us on this Monday evening. We look forward to seeing you next time, but for now, good luck, good night, and God bless.